Hari. By means of these meritorious deeds, may I never join with the foolish. May I always join with the wise until the time I attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Now, are you still there? Hello? Done.
Yes, Bhante.
Yeah.
Yes, Bhante. Yes.
Yes. There were a lot of people at the beginning, but they disappeared all of a sudden. I don't know why.
Bhante, there was a little snafu, so I think we should be able to get back on it now. There was a
What?
There was a little bit of snafu that by mistake the wrong session was started, so this original session got dropped.
But they can reconnect.
They can reconnect. They will be able to reconnect. So people are reconnecting at the moment as we talk.
Yeah, I reconnected.
Okay, anyway, let me start our talk since we are already late. I was talking on right understanding. I want to remind you once again, right understanding has been explained by Venerable Sariputta in 16 ways. We were talking on the 9th, that is feeling. And I have given 3 talks on that, but still not finished. This is the 4th talk on the feeling. We were talking about how feeling can be used or is used by unenlightened persons to generate karma. So the Buddha said in Samyutta Nikaya, addressing Venerable Ananda, when there is the body, because of the body, volitional pleasure and pain arise internally. When there is speech, because of verbal volition, pleasure and pain arises internally. When there is the mind, because of the mental volition, pleasure or pain arise internally. And with ignorance as condition. We discussed that part last week. Today I want to continue that. In the next section, Buddha said, either on one's own initiative, one generates that bodily volitional formation, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally. Now, one's own initiative, when one sees bodies, one's own body or other bodies, the person will think with greed or hatred or with delusion. That is how one initiate oneself without anybody's support. It generally arises in that person's mind a volition, will, with the greed, hatred, or delusion. And when the feeling arises with the greed as underlying tendency of his desire arises, and the person wants to see the body again and again, one's own body or others' bodies. And underlying tendency of this desire is this pleasure is greed. And then greed and pleasure can generate karma, because karma is a mental state. The volition is a will. So volitional formation conditioned by which pleasure and pain arises internally, or prompted by others, one generates that bodily volitional formations conditions by which pleasure and pain arise, not or. Pleasure and pain arise. Whenever the pleasure and pain arises, then that volition definitely generates karma. Or another person may initiate, another person may, if one does not take initiative, other person can prompt your mind to arouse pleasure and pain. And you, when the person prompts you, then will arises in you. And along with that will, pain and pleasure arises internally. Sometimes it may happen deliberately or undeliberately. So Buddha said, undeliberately one generates that bodily volitional formations conditioned by which pleasure and pain arise internally. So this is how the feeling is used to generate karma. Meaning, always there is a projection for future arising of volitional formations, future existence, future increasing pleasure and pain, future becoming. So the Buddha said, either on one's own initiative, one generates that verbal volitional formations, conditions by which pleasure and pain arises, or prompted by others. One generates the volitional formation, condition by which pain and pleasure arise, either internally or externally generated. And under all these things, there is underlying tendency of delusion, confusion. In this case, the mental formations, verbal formations, and bodily formations arise internally in the person. So the Buddha gives the reason why. Wherever there is greed, we have repeated this several times, where there is greed, and there is ignorance. Ignorance is in this state is the most powerful dominating underlying tendency. Because of greed, in the ignorance, the person does not know what desire does. Wherever desire is, ignorance is there. When ignorance is there, greed is there. So these two always go hand in hand. Ignorance and greed, when they come together, they also can generate these two, combine these two, can generate anger, hatred. Although anger is one of the unwholesome roots, without the support of greed and ignorance, anger doesn't arise. But greed and ignorance can arise without the support of anger, hatred. Whenever the hatred or anger arises in us, we must understand that underlying this or supporting anger are these two factors, greed and ignorance. So the Buddha said that with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, this is very important thing, dependent origination. We say, Buddha said, when the ignorance is eliminated, everything will be, all unwholesome thing will crumble down. In the dependent origination, ascending order is in the mind of Puthujjana, unenlightened person. In the unenlightened person's mind has this dependent origination in ascending order. But in Arya person, noble person, we must understand the difference between these two. Puthujjana is one who does not associate with the person with integrity, Sappurisa. The one who does not listen to their Dhamma A person who does not associate with noble one, Arya Puggala, and does not listen to their Dhamma, such a person is called Putujjana, ordinary person, person who is not listening to noble Dhamma, not associating with the noble people, not associating with people with integrity, Sappurisa, not listening to their Dhamma, is called Putujjana. In the Putujjana's mind, ascending order of dependent origination is predominant. It happens every day, every moment. This is how the dependent origination operates in such a person. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, that body does not exist, condition by which that pleasure and pain arise internally. That speech does not exist, condition by which that pleasure and pain arise internally. That mind does not exist, condition by which that pleasure and pain arise internally. Now, we say the Buddha Parinibbutoso Bhagava Parinibbana Dhammandeseti. We can see this in discourses. The Buddha who has Parinibbana means final death. But here Parinibbana is not the final death. If he had his final death, he cannot teach. But what he did was, he destroyed this ignorance, destroyed this craving, destroyed this anger, all the host of defilements he destroyed. And then he is free from the aggregates of clinging. I think I mentioned it earlier. Unenlightened person has the aggregates of clinging. Buddhas do not have aggregates of clinging. They have 5 aggregates, period. Panchakanda, 5 aggregates. What they don't have is the clinging to them. And therefore, they also therefore call not satta. The word satta is defined by the Buddha. Satta means ordinary, we say satta means living being, living beings. But Buddha is not satta in that sense. Defining satta, Buddha said the satto asattoti satto, one who clings to the aggregates is a satta, a being. One who clings to aggregates is a being, a satta. The Buddha is not satta in this sense. Therefore, Buddha is called asattam sugatam buddham. Asattam sugatam buddham. Asatta means one who is not clung to the aggregates. One who is not clinging to aggregates is called asatta. So, in that person's, that field does not exist. What is the field? Field that generates karma. The field is body, speech, and mind. What body? Body that has pleasure and pain, which is another name for suffering. Pleasure and pain are the names for suffering. Where there is pleasure, there is suffering. And when there is pleasure, there is pain. That one who has pleasure has suffering. So that means one who enjoys eyes, yo sukhang abhinandati, so dukkhang abhinandati. One who enjoys the eyes enjoys suffering. One who enjoys the ears enjoys suffering. One who enjoys the nose enjoys suffering. One who enjoys the tongue enjoys suffering. One who enjoys the body enjoys suffering. One who enjoys the mind enjoys suffering. But the Buddha does not enjoy the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. They use them without enjoying them. Ordinary people, unenlightened person, when the pain or pleasure arises through their senses, greed arises, anger arises, karma arises, thought arises, volitional formation arises. So, the Buddha said, when one's ignorance is completely destroyed, then that field does not exist. Field of committing karma. That sight does not exist. That base does not exist. That foundation does not exist. Condition by which that pleasure and pain arise internally. And this is very important thing whenever we think of feeling, how far we can use the feeling, how deeply we can use the feeling, how mindfully and wisely we can use the feeling. And this feeling, therefore, is very important in our meditation practice. Therefore, in order to overcome that, in our mindfulness practice is the most important thing. With mindfulness, we can see the impermanence of feeling. Impermanence of feeling. When we see the impermanence of feeling, underlying tendency of greed does not arise. When we see impermanence of feeling, only when we think incorrectly, wrongly, feeling is permanent, then the underlying tendency arises along with that. I said there are 7 underlying tendencies. Several times I mentioned, but I did not give the whole list of 7. Today I want to conclude this talk with giving the list of 7. They are called underlying tendencies. We use underlying tendencies. In Pali, they are called asava. Asava. Asava simply means influx, continuously flow with our consciousness. Any moment, any time, any posture, any place. There is no time, place, gender, no distinction. Monks, nuns, men, women, children, adults, young, no distinction. In all of them, if they are unenlightened, underlying tendencies can arise. What are they? One is sensual passion, sensual pleasure. In Pali, it's called kama raga anusaya. Kama raga anusaya. Second is friction, fatigue, resistance, underlying tendency. Third is view, ditti, wrong view. There are many kinds of wrong views. These wrong views can exist in the mind of Buddhist, non-Buddhist, men, women, children, monks, nuns, and anybody. Wrong views exist. I don't have time to explain what those wrong views are. That is the third underlying tendency. Fourth is uncertainty, doubt, vichikicha, uncertainty. Uncertain of everything. People can have doubt about everything, especially in the truth. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Noble Truth, Four Noble Truth, dependent origination, and impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness. Like this, in all these things, somebody can have doubt. Doubt in oneself. Also doubt. Then the next, or number 5, is conceit. Conceit. People have various reasons to be conceited. In Pali, it is called mana. So long as I exist, conceit exists. So long as I, quote, unquote, capital I, is inside, there is conceit arises. I is the symbol of conceit. If you use algebra, you use various symbols. Like that, entire conceit is represented by this one I, capital I in English. That's a symbol of conceit. Every time we use the word I, conceit is activated. Then the next is desire for becoming. It's called bhava. Bhava raga anusaya. Bhava anusaya. And the worst of all of them is avidya anusaya. Ignorance. Ignorance anusaya. So, when we destroy ignorance, all other underlying tendencies will vanish. And that is why we have to have a right understanding. Right understanding. When we have right understanding, all this ascending order of dependent origination comes to an end. So, unfortunately, I don't have time to explain the rest. I want to mention very briefly. Today we started a little late. Buddha, one monk asked the Buddha, Venerable Sir, who is the speaker on the Dhamma? Who is the speaker of the Dhamma? Then Buddha said, Bhikkhu, this is very important for us to remember. If one teaches the Dhamma for the purpose of revulsion towards aging and death, for its fading away and cessation, one is fit to be called a bhikkhu who is a speaker on the Dhamma. A bhikkhu who is speaker of the Dhamma. This person doesn't have to wear the robe or shave the head, live in a monastery, be a man, woman, monk, nun, wearing robe, no wearing robe. If that person speaks for the purpose of revulsion towards aging and death, for its fading away and cessation, one is fit to be called a bhikkhu who is speaker on the Dhamma. If one one is gratifying for the purpose of practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards aging and death, for its fading away and cessation, one is fit to be called a bhikkhu who is practicing in accordance with the Dhamma. And then, if through revulsion towards aging and death, through its fading away and cessation, one is liberated by non-clinging, one is fit to be called a bhikkhu who has attained Nibbana. Now that is our purpose. From the aging and death, Buddha went up to ignorance. Aging and death, birth, clinging, craving, and so forth in the descending order. He went down to ignorance. And then that one who destroys ignorance has destroyed everything, all defilements. Now with this, I want to end today's talk, and I want to make my benediction and wish all living beings peaceful and happy, especially those who are suffering COVID-19 and in hospitals. We want to wish them to be free from that, return to normal health, and continue their Dhamma practice. And those very compassionate doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs who take care of these people, even at the risk of their own life, continue their service and be free from any kind of infection, and live long in very good health to continue their service and practice Dhamma and liberate themselves from samsara. Those people who generously supporting all these practices continue their wonderful practice and be free from this disease, live long in good health. Those who have lost their loved ones, millions of people passed away because of this untimely. May they be free from their grief and return to their regular normal life and continue the Dhamma practice and liberate themselves from samsara suffering. Overall, everybody, the leaders, followers, every country, everywhere, all of you who participate in this series of talks and practice of Dhamma, practice of meditation, encouraging me to continue this service. May all of you be well, happy and peaceful, attain complete liberation from samsaric suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Bhante.
Next everyone. Have a nice
Bhante. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu, sadhu.